He says, you know something? People just can't figure out Mike. He's like you're like almost a Looney Tune character where everyone's like, don't go in there, Mike. Don't open that box, Mike. Don't open it. There's a bomb in there. And it opens up and it blows up. But it's like you are like, you got like Teflon Don with Donald Trump, but you're like Looney Tune tough.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Right. And that resilience. And I when I look at
I did go inside of a claw machine.
So when you go on Jimmy Kimmel, and you go on all these other shows where normally they would that would be the end of anything.
Yeah, and they told me don't go on. Everybody told me don't go on.
To be honest, I don't even remember why I decided you should be in there.
No, you said it on your show.
It seemed like a good idea when it happened. I have to say I was very surprised when you said you would do it. You distrust machines. Does that extend to like sewing machines? Yeah. Tell me, what about ice machines? You okay with those?
Jimmy, you know what? You can make fun of that, but we know the machines I'm talking about are voting machines, computers used in elections, because we want to have elections and not selections.
But it's like they're baffled because whatever their designs, whatever the traps are, it's like you kind of walk out, the explosion's done, dust off the rubble.
That's the God's protection, That's
amazing.
And one of the things in the first Jimmy Kimmel, people ask me all the time, and that was one of the biggest risks, they're going, because he had an agenda, the Disneys of the world, the ABCs that are above him. You put the last dagger in Mike Lindell because he won't shut up. And that was the spring of 21. But I went on there, he had this whole hit job of questions. And as he's starting, it's very easy. One of the things I got there, and God set this up, I was in the green room and they said that Jimmy had read my book. Now, if you read my book, a lot of the journalists on the left, I made them read my book before I give them a full interview. Yeah, I make them do that because they're going to be torn. I don't care who you are, you're going to be torn because you realize my agenda is for my Lord and Savior Jesus, and to help people, and to
that's amazing.
And that was one thing. The other thing is I took over when I went there. I said, Jimmy, you read the book. He was going to do a whole attack on crack cocaine, like being delusional or whatever. And I'm the one that fed into it. And then he does this timeline. He goes, and then you did this, and then you fell in love with Donald Trump, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, no, you're missing one part. And I brought up January 16th of 2009 when God freed me of all my addiction. And I got into that. Now, here's what happened there. We went to a commercial break, and Jimmy and I are sitting there, and I could tell, and I go, Jimmy, I said, we got to unite this country and help this country. I said, people didn't want me to come on here. And he goes, yeah, they didn't want you to come on. My people didn't want you to come on either. And he goes, and I said, they attacked you last summer for blackface in the 90s. And he looked at me, he goes, yeah, but the difference is, Mike, I did something really bad. All you've done is back a man you believe in. And it was like he had a moment there, right? The last time I was on there in the claw machine, which, that I did it for one reason. Why am I doing that? But to get the word out, because we don't have the other media. And that I knew that would go viral. And Jimmy there, on that one, if you remember the setup, God gave me those answers. One of the things that happened there was in the green room, in his monologue in the beginning before I came on, he bashed me and had all these, Mike Lindell investigating the election and all this stuff. And he said everything I was afraid I wouldn't get out in the thing. So I had a piece. He already did it for me. It was such a piece getting into that machine because my only worry was, God, please let me get all this out I need to get out or that you want out. He did it for me. So now I'm in the machine and I could do fun things like, one of the opening lines was when he goes, Mike, he said, something about machines. I said, hey, Jimmy, I said, remember when we were kids and with these machines, we thought they were rigged. And when we spoke out about it, we didn't get sued. Remember those days?
Yeah, I remember that.
And then he says, this kid come up. I go, it's a rigged game, kid. It's a rigged game, For me, it was, and I think I explained it in my book, it was, I used to work at a drive-in movie theater, and you had the first feature and the second feature, right? Well, I knew that day on January 16, 2009, if I waited one more day to quit everything, the second feature was not going to, that wasn't going to be an option anymore, which was my calling and everything. The first feature, wherever that was going to bring me, that path I was on, this was going to be gone, the second feature. And so I prayed that night and I said, God, I want to be, I said, I know I have this big calling and this, but it sounded, I thought the calling was to get people off of crack and everything else and get people out of addiction. And I thought this is going to be this weight of the world on me, and I'm not going to have my own drugs. And I had, no money, nothing left anyway at that time. But the prayer was, if I'm going to do this, I want to do it without the desire. So I prayed to get rid of the desire. Well, when I woke up the next morning, all the desire was gone. It's never returned, ever. I could walk into a crack house, it wouldn't matter. So to me, that was the day I got saved. That was a miracle. It was like a big shift, right? And in fact, as the story goes, about 3 months later or 2 months later, I went into my church. There's a treatment center there. It's connected to it, and I said I went back in there. And I said, I talked to this counselor. I said, yeah, I'm going to start here tomorrow night. But I said, I used to be an addict. I quit everything 2 months ago. And I said, I have this big call and I'm going to write a book someday. I'm going to help all these people out of addiction. I'm going to have this big platform, all these things. And everything I told him that has come to fruition. But he went home and told his wife, he said, you should have seen this guy that came in, higher than a kite, all these things. And he's told that many times, but for him to watch these miracles happen. But the point being is I always wear my cross on TV. You've seen that. So I wasn't posing. I just thought I was already there, that there was nothing more that, and plus, back in the day, in fact, when I would take phone calls, when I was the only call center, I'd have Christians calling me up going, you're wearing your cross to sell pillows or whatever. And I would send them a picture of me in a crack house with my cross on, looking all disheveled, and say, no, I wore my cross then too, right? And then people that would call me up that were the atheists or the non-believers, I'd sit there and tell them all about Jesus and God that I read about Revelation when I was in jail in the Bible, So I'm telling them all about Jesus, not even knowing it myself, and they're getting saved. I go, there, take that, And I'm going, or my friends back in the day in the bar days, I had a bar for 13 years and not a good place for an addict, but I would after the bar would close, my friends and I would all go over to a house, whatever, afterwards. And I'd be sitting there, if we'd be doing drugs or cocaine or drinking, whatever it was, I'd be telling them how, hey, we need to get off this. And I was telling about guns, about this, about getting saved or whatever. Well, they'd quit everything and I'd keep going. But it was me trying to convince myself. And now it got to the point where my other friends go, will you quit talking about that? You were losing friends because they would be, get saved. And a lot of them, but anyway, so with that, such a big transformation for me, I just, I kind of, thought that's when I was saved. And when Kendra looked for, and when I met her in the summer of 2014, my pillow was within 2 days of going under. We were, millions in debt. And she says, we got to pray, and we're praying for favor and all this. And then these miracles started happening. You read the book, but she just knew. She goes, are you sure you're saved? Jesus, your person. I go, absolutely. And we get fights about it. I'm going, of course I am. And then it got to like I told you, that pastor in the spring of 15 when he said, maybe all this is for you to get saved and do a full surrender. And I'm going, have you been talking to Kendra? But it was like I'm hearing it, and then it took all those miracles, which I consider other miracles, of all of a sudden I'm involved at a very national level, things that to me it could only be God. It's impossible to be,
So you had miracles moving upon you, but when you found the Lord and you accepted Him as your Savior, what's the biggest difference from different?
There was a couple of things. One, and Kendra knew right away that I was saved. That was her thing. That thing had to happen. She knew right away. She could even tell by my voice on the phone, and she just went, just absolutely joy, screaming with joy. But I went into this, that was a miracle even getting into that, because it was for veterans, and I'm not a veteran. And they called them drop zones. Call it like a retreat. This was different. This was a drop zone where you're going in, you're finding out, what your wounds were from childhood, and all these different things. And then we prayed that, I got on my knees and prayed with the guys there to ask Jesus for be my personal Savior. And one of the things that happened right away is there are things one particular thing I could not forgive myself for back in the 80s. You read the book. And that I could never forgive myself when everybody else did, and God certainly had, but I couldn't forgive myself. And one of the things is, if you read my book, one of the things I felt all the time, which I found out, was this fear of rejection. Well, you don't get rejected if you don't talk. Now, I could never talk in front of, and giving speeches, whenever, you say, well, you did commercials. That was different. I was petrified on my first commercial, but it was just an uncomfortable feeling. It was like, you talk about fear of speaking in public. This was my worst fear. But for him, I forgave myself, and it was just like a weight lifted off of me, where now it's like, instead of me trying to make stuff happen or whatever, I was able to give it to God. And it was like this relief. It was I can't say it was more of this biggest relief. And now it was more kind of at that moment where I could be more proactive in prayer too. Because the Bible, actually, I couldn't even read the Bible before I'd read it. It was like, it's like a foreign language, It's like, or I'd sit in a church and it's just noise, right? And all these things. Well, after that happened, one of the miracles was 2 months later, I spoke in front of 50,000 people at US Bank Stadium at a Christian event, a Christian event with all these bands and big speakers big evangelists. And here's me up there for 10 minutes just telling this little story about me being ex-crack addict and this, and the Lord saved me, and all this stuff. Well, and then I lead the whole place in a 1-minute prayer. I couldn't lead 2 people in prayer, and I'm leading 50,000 people in prayer. Well, then one of the things I remember 2 weeks later, I was at an amusement park here in Minnesota called Valley Fair with my granddaughter, and people kept coming up to me, all these kids, 18 to 25-year-old kids just coming up, and they're not coming up to me about the pillow. They're coming up to me in droves going, I was at that event. You meant so much to me. I got saved at that event because of what you said and all. And I'm going, wow. And finally my granddaughter said, Mom, he's my grandpa. We need to go and rise, But for me, it was that it rung in my head, just like I'm on the right path. I use Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understandings, and always acknowledge him, and he will guide your path. Well, there's times in my life where, if you go back when I invented the pillow, when people all came in, and it felt so good that they had bought these pillows. And it wasn't about the money. It was that I had helped them. And it was just this feeling that I knew, that path, it just felt right. But here it was knowing that I'm on God's right path. I'm listening to God, doing what my calling, whatever that was going to lead. Now, at that moment in time, did I think it was going to be like it is now? Not in a million years. But I was thrown from a guy that couldn't talk to leading 50,000 in prayer. So it wasn't like tiptoe in. Right?
Yeah.
So that was very powerful to me.
And as you're talking, because I know all these, you get all these near-death experiences too. I mean, there's so many things that we can go into. But one thing that you mentioned was you've had these prophetic moments.
Mm-hmm.
And sure enough, you get such a strong vision or impression, and it happens.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we could place, Mark? Has there been anything that's resonated with you that you just haven't been able to share about your vision for America going forward? Is there something that the Lord's spoken to you about, like maybe 3 years from now, what this country looks like?
What I've gotten is all this stuff that's happening. We are going to get to a great place out here. And now, do I think that guaranteed Donald Trump's going to win? No. I have a peace about it. You got to take all that out of the picture. We're going to get to a beautiful place out here, and everyone's going to look back and say, all these things had to happen. All the negative, especially the negatives, because you couldn't get to that beautiful place if the bad didn't happen. But people are perceiving it as bad, but it's not. It's the most needed thing there is. And all of these pieces, and that gives you a peace. I would like everyone to know, I've said it before, one of the things when I spoke from the Rose Garden, one of the most amazing times of my life, when it was the stuff that led up to that is, the book that's wrote from the time my book ended to now, take that and multiply it by 10. There's nothing, it's like living inside this biggest movie in history, and you're the hub of a wheel or whatever. And I'm going, and I sit a lot of times I'll say, God, why me? And then, why me? And then once in a while I'll say that and I'll go, it's like, because then you kind of worry, am I making these right decisions? But then once again, I got to get in the Word and pray, and then that little fear goes away. I don't have any fear other than fear of the Lord, and that's really key. But if you look at all, when I said from that rose garden, I said, one of the words I said was, God has given us grace. Remember, this was right before the China virus, right? In the spring of 20, okay? Right before, a week before everybody went in lockdown, I said, God has given us grace for such a time as this. We got to spend time with our Bibles and our family. And when I said that, people come up to me all the time now and say, well, Mike, this doesn't feel like grace. I said, oh, but you're wrong. I said, this is the grace. Now, you're not seeing it because you're not seeing God's big picture. We don't know what God has planned. But I do know we're going to get to this beautiful place. And if we don't, here's what I told people early on that. I said, okay, let's say we're wrong. And I include, well, all of us guys are wrong, right? We're conspiracy theory guys. None of this we just want to wait, completely be destroyed and spend every waking hour because it's a new thing for us or whatever, right? I'm saying, you know what? If we're wrong, if let's say God has another plan and we don't get, let's say it's just end times, we don't get nothing back. It's just all down here. Well, you know what? We win either way. The believers, we go to heaven. Yeah. It's a win-win. So you guys say that's why they call it faith. And if you keep the faith, and do I have a vision out here? I have never let the vision be that we will secure our elections and we will get to a place. Put it this way, I would not want to be on the other side. Evil overplays its hand. They always do. It's, that's the one thing we have. Evil is greedy. They're greedy, and that helps us, So as bad as things get, and if it makes more and more people come to this common sense bucket for here, so we can fix physical things here, which election platforms and so on, or it brings more and more people to this bucket. I have family members that A, aren't believers, or B, were on the left. Well, all of them have come to this bucket, either the bucket of common sense that, and that's me out there fighting and taking hits, even people in my own company here, not when the good things were happening, they're coming here when the bad things are happening to this bucket. So that's pretty amazing.
And I know you've been thinking about this bucket thing for a while. When I rode on a plane with you a long time ago, you said something that stuck with me about, we don't have to call it the Trump bucket, but I think at the time you were calling it the Trump bucket.
Yeah.
When you get poured into that bucket,
you never leave.
You never leave.
You never leave. This is what's key. And I tell him that all the time. I said, Mr. President, you've never done anything. If you got in that bucket with all the stuff he's been attacked for, even if you believe some of it or not, once you're in there, you've never done one thing for them to leave that bucket.
And I'm proof of that, by the way.
Not one single thing. It might have took you longer to get in that bucket, but more people now on this side are coming in that bucket because they've seen those two examples.
2016.
No.
I was never Trump.
Right. No.
I couldn't say. I got in fights with my family members. I was so offended.
Right.
And then about 2 years in, I'm like, I think I like this guy.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I'm voting for him.
Right.
And you're right. Like the more that I see,
right.
I'm in the Trump bucket.
Right. Here, and you know what I compared that to back then? I didn't know about Jewish people. Okay. And there's Messianic Jews. Mm-hmm. And then there's all the other kind of Jewish people, right? So Orthodox, whatever it is, okay? And I use this example because I've been to Israel many times now. Yeah. And I said, once you you jump into the Jesus Jewish bucket, the Messianic Jew, mm-hmm. you don't leave that. Once you get with Jesus, you don't leave that bucket. Mm-hmm. But you have people all the time leaving this bucket over here and coming into that bucket. It doesn't go the other way. Yeah. So this is it's kind of a comparison. So once people jump into this revival we're at now, not just with Jewish, whatever, but I'm saying with all people, you jump into this bucket and you've been other places. You don't leave that bucket. Yeah. You don't leave the bucket. All the stuff that's going on there, the bad stuff, your transgender garbage, all this stuff. We took God out of schools, like in this movie here, took God out of the schools. Yeah, that manifestation is God is where we're at now. And this godless, when nation turned his back on God. But now the people that are coming back, it's not just the people that were in the bucket doing nothing, right? That were sitting here going, okay, I'm just going to bide my time. And, what I've told people before, if you can't get out and ministry, evangelize now to your family, to your people, whatever, now's the time. If you're a pastor out there, you better be out there going, hey, come on in. We got, you got a problem. Here's your answer. So they're pouring in. The people that were here are activated, speaking out, doing what they're doing. They're supposed to be out there, talking about Jesus, talking about God and stuff. And those have been activated. And now, but people pouring in, that bucket, it just keeps growing. So we're in an amazing place in history.
I want to do a couple rapid fire things.
Mm-hmm.
And these are questions for me. I may not make the documentary, I don't care. But I don't get to talk to you like this very often. So what do you think the biggest misconception people have about you? You talked about misconceptions about Trump. Have you done any self-reflection?
I've never, I guess sometimes I have, it surprises me. Like I was very surprised when, I came out and I swore and I say, people, I had to talk to, talk to people go, well, I didn't say the F word. I didn't use God's name in vain. And they're going, but I did. And I never swear, but I did. So I was surprised people out there that they thought, oh, over here, the attackers thought this would be good. Let's release this. Oh, Mike, you're Christian, you're not really a Christian because you swore.
Without you saying that, Mike, I knew because of your faith that you were wrestling with it. I knew it.
Yeah.
Because I know you don't curse.
Right. Yeah. And that was my thing that bugged me. The one thing they picked. But here's what I told Kendra and others. I said, they picked that one to go viral because that was so out of sorts for me. It was so out of character. So they thought, well, here, let's show Mike he's a fake Christian because he said the word a-hole, right? But it backfired on them again. We all sinners.
Yeah.
And you know what? Do I forgive the guy for attacking me there? Absolutely. That's one thing about me. I don't hold grudge. I don't hold grudge. I forgive them. That's the first thing I'll do is pray about them. It's what I did.
Well, I did even worse than you. Someone agitated me that I was trying to reconcile with.
Right.
And I didn't know they were recording the whole thing. And they were just needling me, threatening to dox members of my family. And I remember just thinking, the F's wrong with you?
Right.
And it came out. Well, this was a 45-minute interview.
Right.
And this person, I'll tell you later, but basically went out there and put the F-bomb. And I was hurt by it because I'm like, I don't want my Christian witness to be affected.
Right, to be affected. Yeah.
And so like I wrestle with, but most people, they look at it from the outside, they understand it.
Right.
So, okay. So
but that was one thing. But when you say, what is, I see a misconception about me, I don't think about that because I almost feel like everybody knows, because my openness came before, when you see me on TV, I do commercials. A lot of them ad lib. I mean, I am who I am. So it's not, if there's a misconception out there, I don't know it and I don't think about it. I'm going, it surprised me that people knew because I haven't talked about my addiction. I haven't been on conservative radio and stuff telling the story. So some people don't know that, but you'd be surprised. A generation grew up with me with the My Pillow commercials and they all feel like they know me. What's really cool is kids come up, all ages, from 5 years old. It doesn't matter. They come up, they want my picture. It's almost like
the kids are included.
Yeah. But it's almost like because they grew up with the jingle, they grew up with me, and so I don't know what that would be. I guess if there's anybody out there that thinks, I don't know if there's a mass group. There might be a few individuals out there that say, "Oh, Mike's." Lying about all this, but that's not true. They're always saying that as the media,
Yeah, let me share this. This is my observation because people ask me about you all the time. I go on tour. I can't go to a state without someone saying, "What do you think about this, Mike?" And they asked me about you, and I said, maybe I'm off mark here. I said, I think one of the biggest misconceptions about Mike is that people underestimate him. They see his energy and they mistake that for someone who's not. I said, I think Mike's frustration and the reason why he gets so amped up, he's so far ahead
So far,
that he's frustrated
Right.
that he's got to slow down.
right.
And the reason why I think I got that intuition is when I read your book, you've got this ability, at least in the past, to count cards.
Mhm.
And I told people, do you understand how nimble your mind has to be able to just kind of fragment pieces of information?
Right.
And not only that,
Mhm.
because there's a little bit of performance in that,
Right.
where you got to make sure that the dealer doesn't know that.
Right.
you're
Yeah.
doing it.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I'm like that's, and so when I look at you in the modern day battle to save elections or to go fight, like God knew what he was doing.
Right. Right.
Because I mean, just here today, you putting out, you just mentioned,
Fire,
you're
yeah.
putting out fire after fire after
And today was an exception. This was even magnified about 3x, which is of a normal day. I mean, I had this day cleared, and this is just, but I figure that's all attacks the devil attacking going, we don't want all this to happen. And, it's interesting you say that because I guess that is a misconstrued because a lot of even people out there that wanted to get behind me, he's never going to change, but it's so he doesn't have things organized when really I do. There's not in the organ. It's the most organized thing you'd ever see. But I'm so passionate. I think it comes out like
You're ahead.
This is gonna happen. And I've only been wrong on timing sometimes. Timing because I want it to happen right now. That's something I've learned to pull. I've had to learn that in the last 3 years to pull back on and do and wait on God rather than on me, because I could push that thing through. As you reading my book, I'm just used to miracles happen at the last possible second, and you pull through, and you get complacent to that in a way, And so for me, it's like, that was one thing I've had to change on, and I think you're right. And one of the things where I didn't get labeled at, and this was, but this wasn't any fault of my own. This was because of the misconception. One of the biggest misconceptions out there, because I had 3 donor events early on to help with this, and I raised nothing. And these were all multi-millionaire and billionaire people. I said, you know what? I don't care. I don't have time to have these if they don't want to support. And there were 2 things going on. One is, I don't think people early on could wrap their self around going, we got to get rid of all the computers in our elections. Mike just wants to melt down the machine. They're going, well, I can't put money in this. He's never going to win this battle. And the other one said, Mike's got all the money. He's rich. Let him, go, Mike, go. Well, I was in this big billionaire and millionaires in this group, and I won't name the group. And they said, "Oh, we got behind you," but I said, "No, you did. You said you all bought product."
every event that I do, because everyone are there, and one of the things I say at almost every place is like, you all need to stop giving Mike Lindell more stuff to do. You need to stop giving me more stuff to do. Like, the problem is that we, the people, collectively have it. Use what we've got. It doesn't mean that we all have the same amount
Right,
of resources, but you can do tremendous things with what you've got.
Right.
But
To finish that though,
Yeah.
that has shifted. I made it very known. Yeah, I spent $60 million. I borrowed money this year. I've sold buildings. I've sold assets. To push it forward. You were there at the event. I cheered up on the stage there. That's the only time I did a call for help, and the help came in, at least paid for the event. We didn't have money to make payroll at the event. That's so close things are now. I'm in a critical situation now, but I'm praying to God. I said this will come, and I've actually reached out for help, but you know who's responded? Usually the micro people out there. They're the ones out there, and I've said it to these, the big donors out there, put money behind these candidates. You guys, it's been shh. You better fix our election platform, and we've got all the tools to do it. But now we need help. We need help now, and that's very simple. So this for the first time, because for me, I'm not one to ask anybody for that, especially money help. I would rather give the shirt off my back. I did it in my book. Yeah. My last $6 or $100 in Vegas that time saved the guy's life, and I'm sitting there with nothing, but it didn't matter. You go on and you make it. I'll figure it out.
Wow. Well, these are all softballs.
Okay.
Mike, growing up, favorite band you ever listened to?
What's that?
If you had to pick a favorite band, maybe if someone that you put on the radio that I don't know, maybe surprise people, but when you were a teenager, was there a particular music group that you
Bob Seger,
Bob Seger?
100%.
Okay, Bob
I followed his band around for 20 years, from Bob Seger.
Favorite fast food?
Favorite fast food, I guess chicken, probably.
Okay. Not Hardee's?
Huh?
Not Hardee's?
Not Hardee's. That was I went back there a year later. I went back there. Dave's Bush showed my other hunting buddy where it all went down.
Yeah, that's probably going to change. You'll probably never go through a drive-through again without thinking about.
No, you know what I think about that. The thing that the scary part of this was the way they did it. If this would have happened at night, okay. I told my friend, right, there's some bad guy, there's some bad thing going down here because they surrounded. No markings, whatever. I had to yell out and say, "Who are you? Show me a badge." I didn't believe them. If that had happened at night, you read my book. You think I'm waiting around to see if they're bad or good people? Yeah. I'm bashing through them, the highest speed chase you ever seen, to try and find a cop I know is a cop. And that's fact. And so what would have happened then? Would they have been able to fire on me? I don't know. Yeah. This is very sad what they did, because they could have came here. Here's my phone.
Is there a, okay, so I've got some ridiculous things that I do that would probably shock people, that if I have me time and I'm not doing machines or traveling, right. Is there kind of like a guilty pleasure, something that might surprise people? Like if Mike Lindell needs to unplug, get away from it all, even if it's for 5 minutes, how does Mike Lindell do that? Because you strike me as a person that doesn't sleep.
Yeah, no, it's movies. I even but it's movies. It's movie. Even movies I've seen before that bring me back. It's an escape for that moment in time. The only problem I have is the movies I grew up with. I go to try and watch them now, and they're so full of GDs and other thing, we can't watch them. And that's a shame. If you took them out, there was no reason back then. That was just a common thing. And movies, you would say, that were PG-13 back then, and you're going, what? I don't even remember this. I try, but there's, I will still, Kendra won't, she won't watch, but I will still, to escape, and I have to just, but it's great to me, but it's an escape. And even new movies, the ones that do come out, they, that it's an escape. I enjoy, I used to just, and this brings back in the day, I used to go to a movie theater and sit there for 7 movies in a row from morning till night, just a complete escape, to just, and nowadays, and if you read my book, I mean, I'd have these 2 trips every year that were like my rock, my fishing trip with my dad in the spring, and then my hunting trip, this pond I went to that I've done all my life since 11 years old.
Still do it now?
Yeah, absolutely. It's coming up this next weekend. Okay. But as far as it's, I used to watch TV all the time, and I don't anymore. I haven't watched TV in a couple of years, which I used to sit. I'd be a Fox watcher or whatever, and watching. I don't watch it all anymore. People come up to me and they'll go, Mike, this in the news, or like if I go on my show, well, if there's a current event, or if I've told people, like if I go on Steve Bannon or whatever, don't bring up some current event, because I am not out there doing it. I'm focused on election platform. Yeah. That's it. So if there's stuff out there, I don't get that noise. And the one thing, but as far as a quick escape, it would probably be the movies.
Last one for now, and then we'll retool. I think we got so much great stuff. I can't think of it at the time. But outside of President Trump, is there a surreal meeting of someone over the past 3-4 years that surprised you? I mean, like, you're visible, everyone knows who you are, but outside of Trump, who obviously you got a great deal of respect and admiration for, has there just been like a holy cow, I never thought that I'd find myself talking to this person?
Oh, that's happened so many times, I couldn't even tell you. I never thought I'd meet Jimmy Kimmel. Okay. When I was in the claw machine, he brought me upstairs to meet his parents. They came specifically to meet me. And Jimmy comes off the set, and he goes, and his parent, I remember his mom saying, he goes, yeah, Mike, your people attack my son all the time. I go, well, first of all, I don't know what people you're talking about. I said, you do realize your son goes after a lot of people, right? She goes, oh, I read your book. You're such a card. Now, Jimmy comes up and asks me, and it was real. But I'm talking about not so much, the Star Trek thing, but him being real. And he asked me, is it even feasible to get rid of these machines, Mike? Because he knows I believe what I'm saying, even said it publicly, right? And I go, absolutely. And we've got a great replacement system. And he talked for me for probably 15 minutes, and it was basically, he wasn't in his shtick, right?
Yeah.
People say, well, Mike, he's so evil, blah, blah, blah. But he wasn't there at that moment in time.
Yeah.
And so, but as far as do I get jitters from meeting anybody, I think that was taken care of a long time ago when I met, bands like, Jimmy Buffett, when I met him, and Bob Seger back in the day the first time, when I met, Stephen Baldwin when we became friends. There were things set up in my life where people have a moment of fame where they meet someone. The Eagles, meeting all the Eagles. I mean, I was put in places where nobody would be put in all my life for that. It was like a setup. But meeting, and then to meet the president, everything after that.
It's like,
no. But I mean, you can't. Like I met Ted Cruz for the first time just a few months ago, and it was just very down to earth. What amazes me is these people now, are looking at me like you can the part I like is they're all looking for me for don't give up, even though they don't even have to say it. Yeah. Some of them don't even have to say it.
Do you think Ted Cruz falls in that category?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he wasn't. I know when people meet me, and I haven't felt one of the famous people you're talking, where they come up and you can feel like like a resentment stuff or whatever. Even people like that are bad, like your John Merrill, the Secretary of State of Alabama. He was starstruck by me, and even though he's doing this horrible things to Alabama, wanting pictures with me and stuff, brings me up to their governor, and they're taking pictures up. So I go, John, you have 4,600 people here that voted in Alabama off your voter roll that are over 110 years old. He goes, well, Mike, we live pretty good here in Alabama, don't we? And I said, this isn't funny, John. But I guess what I'm saying is God took away that fear of people just going, wow, I can't believe I'm talking to them, because I think it was so that I could be real with them, because that's the part that they like, with Donald Trump. And the thing with him was it was so easy. It was like, did I have fear then? I knew I had to get a message or whatever was set up there. Yeah. And that was, but he made it so it was like talking to you, like, just a friend that you've known forever or something, Yeah. But all these, like I say, my biggest surprise is the famous people that are out there. It's hard for me to wrap my head around and the guy just said to me, he said, they'll say it at rallies, you and the president are the most recognized people in the world. Yeah. And I can't wrap my head around that. I go, no, it's like, and people, and then I forget sometimes. I'll walk into a restaurant and go to sit down, and it starts, and it might be 100 pictures in. They come out of the back, the cooks and everything. It happens everywhere. But it's I don't want to ever be.
Get a sense of what I love about this, though, is because it's not about, you don't strike me as a guy that gets starstruck or is into yourself, but you got to get a sense of how the everyman thinks about stuff when you go out into the world.
Yeah. No.
By and large, it's a positive reaction. Mm-hmm. What do you say?
And see, it's all positive. And here's the thing with people, only 2 people ever have came up where they were, and one of them was in Washington, D.C. on a bicycle. And he came up, and it was almost like it was planted, because I was at Trump Hotel there. And it was very demonic. And then there was another one in Laughlin, Nevada. Other than those 2 ever, okay? So what I'm saying is, but with me is, what I see is people out here that used to be, I come from 2 levels. You realize I was already on TV 3 million times by 2016. I mean, I know that the Minnesota Twins, when I threw out the first pitch, they did a baseball card with stats on the back. This many employees, this many pillows sold, and this many. So I had that where people come up and you think you changed my life. There was either 2 things. You changed my life, and your pillow helped me so much. And then the other ones, when my book came out, it was, I read your book, and they when I was telling my story, you're meant so much. I fell in the Lord, whatever. Yeah. Well, now every person comes up, but it's usually for only one thing now. don't give up. Is there hope? Keep going. We're praying for you every day. And for me, it's hard to wrap my head around that going, like I just keep going. I go, God, you hear this? This isn't me. This is you. You need to, open the doors that no man can shut. And so that when I get, it takes away the overwhelming feeling of the responsibility, and where, this is God using me.
So last question. Last question. And this might sound like a strange question, but I think I know the answer. Has Mike Lindell had a moment where he said, Lord, I'm ready to give up everything? Everything. I mean, because we talk about the vision for victory, and Lord willing, it's going to happen. But I get the sense that My Pillow is more about the platform that God's given you than it is about numbers and metrics. I mean, that's important to run a successful business. But you strike me as a guy that would be at peace if we saved the country.
If I lost everything. I've said this before to people. I said, do you think for 1 minute that if I could say, okay, Donald Trump, if it got overturned back then and we had him, all that would delay the inevitable. It's over. It would be over if we don't get rid of these computers and fix it right now. Fix these election platforms. 51 countries have succumbed to the machine. Bolsonaro, my good friend, President Bolsonaro, there's a good example too. When I met President Bolsonaro, now there I was a little bit, because we don't speak the same language, and I had heard about him from his son and stuff, and here's this great man, a great leader, and I met him, and not only meaning him have an interpreter, but I was such myself, and he said, I've never met anyone like him. I really, we became friends because it was just, total transparency. But I was a little like, wow, I'm in the, this great leader. It was like a rerun though, of different things. And it's just a little bit like here he's telling other people that I'm hearing back to me that they just like the transparency and that you're not going to give up. Yeah. And the one thing I want everybody to know, I want to say this before we quit, is everybody, I say this in all my speeches, we started winning 2 dates in history that are so important that people, and what are those 2 days? January 7th and 8th of 2021. Those are two of probably the most important dates. And you could even maybe combine that week, but those 2 days especially, because what happened on those 2 days? After the setup of January 6th, 1.2 million Americans were deplatformed, including Donald Trump, 100 million people on Twitter. All these people deplatformed on Vimeo, YouTube, Suckerbucks, Facebook, everybody. All the people that had a voice, and the ones that hadn't spoke out, they're never going to speak out because they're in fear now, right? So you had this perfect storm, and what they did, and I've always compared it to when I was growing up, the black and white TVs. You probably heard me say that. When we were kids, we turned off a TV, this black and white, we'd go down to this little tiny dot, this little blue-white dot, and we go, right before it went out, who could get it the smallest, we'd turn it back on, the dot would come back to life. Yeah. Well, think of that dot as our voice. If they succeeded on those 2 days, and by the way, Parler was completely deplatformed that same time too. So you had all these things happen. If our voice is gone then, if that little dot went off completely, it's over. But that dot didn't. It started growing on January 9th and beyond. It didn't grow as fast as I wanted it to, but it kept growing and growing and growing. And people shifted where they're getting their information. And people didn't give up like yourself. And many, many people out there that kept going where that dot became bigger and they're hearing this voice. And those people heard the voice. And those people heard our voice. And those people heard our voice. And by repetition, and there's an old commercial back in the day. It was a hair commercial. It was a hair shampoo commercial. And they told 2 friends, and they tell 2 friends, and so on and so on. You remember that? Well, that's what had happened then. We were down to very small voice, but now we're winning. Our voice has gotten bigger. We have all the tools, and we have our voice. And it was a shift of a paradigm from, we lost all our conservative media. With this media over here, they're not going to change. They might be the first ones that change, actually, that start reporting about elections, believe it or not. Yeah. But we don't care because everybody shifted to podcasts. They shifted to social media platforms that sprung up. Frank Social, Social, Frank Speech, Gab, Getter, Truth, Telegram, all these platforms sprung out of that. Our voices needed to be heard, and people get courage is contagious, and it keeps getting more and more and more.
Sounds like the Red Sea, the Red Wave.
Yeah,
right?
no. But I'm telling you, and everyone can sit here and say, you hear the old thing, well, the judges did this, and no judges, they're in fear. And the president, you've heard him say, our real president said just the other day, he goes, oh, these judges are in fear. I've told him this so many times. I said, sir, these judges, they're not all bad. They're just in fear. Who wants to be the first one? Who wants to be the first one? But we're seeing, just like you see at the event, with all 50 states were there, some judges, they're getting brave and braver and braver. Look at what one judge back in the day in Florida, remember the airplane mandates and stuff? And that judge in Florida stood up and said, this is nonsense. It changed everything immediately forever. It changed everything because of one brave judge.
Amen.
So that's what we have to have. Courage is contagious. I tell everyone, if you're saving your courage for a rainy day, it's pouring outside,